Welcome to Amish Roots, plain talk in a modern world. Thank you for joining me. Have you ever wondered how some people get chosen to be the boss at your workplace? I'm not talking about the owners of the business. I'm referring to the people they put in charge of overseeing the daily operations. I love watching the TV show Undercover Boss. This is where the pencil pushing, suit and tie attired actual owner of a company disguises themselves and joins the people who do the manual labor at their companies. This boss often has no idea what the workers do daily to make sure the service or product they own gets to customers and consumers. Now, I realize that it is impossible for owners of large companies to know every detail about how and what happens in the workplace. That is why they assign supervisors and managers. But what I question is how some of these people end up being tasked with leadership when it's so obvious they have none. So, what exactly am I talking about? Well, I'm so glad you asked. And I would be delighted to tell you, because I know some of you are listening who are muttering to yourselves right now and saying, I agree. How did that jerk become my manager? Before I start, I want to explain that I may be part of the problem in some of these stories. To understand the dynamics of the situations, you need to know that I like to be organized. I like structure in my workday. I also consider myself as a responsible person and can adapt to situations that might unexpectedly arise. I do not, however, take kindly to unfair treatment, whether it is on me or a coworker. My first jobs were all as a babysitter. I worked in the homes of the children I looked after, so the parents were my bosses. I had to make decisions about childcare during my time with them, but I also conferred with the parents on the way they wanted their children to be raised. So these jobs don't count. I was also lucky in one of my first jobs with a company because I worked for a small business where the owner was present on a daily basis, making it clear who gave the orders. However, some of my other jobs were a mishmash of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Keep in mind the stories I'm about to share are listed in no particular order. One supervisor I had was a lot of fun, but it soon became evident that her leadership abilities needed some work. Although she herself was a hard worker, she was unable to motivate her employees. There were many times I came to work in the morning and the evening staff had left a mess behind. When the supervisor confronted them, they told her they didn't have time to clean. So her answer was to tell us we needed to just grin and bear it and clean up before we started the new day because it was easier for her than dealing with the night staff. Hmm, excuse me. What planet are you from? Another supervisor I had rightfully gave us instructions when we arrived at work, but then disappeared into the office to do who knows what. The supervisor very seldom lended a hand, even when we were extremely busy. Their idea of managing employees was to continually change their mind about what needed to be done, even if we were in the middle of something. When we would ask or question if we could finish what we were doing and then start the new task, the supervisor would call the boss and say we would not listen and we were being difficult. This resulted in the boss calling me after hours one time and yelling over the phone before asking for my side of things. Needless to say, I was not impressed. Things only changed when the boss became more present at our workplace and realized what was actually going on. This was like undercover boss without the disguise, and I appreciated it. When I interviewed at one place, and this was 2 years after the COVID pandemic, the manager looked over my resume, then asked me some questions, And when I inquired as to how many hours they were expecting me to work and which days I would be hired for, the manager told me it was really up to me. Say what? They told me, basically, we are desperate for help, and whatever you can do to help us, we appreciate it. So, that, my friends, is how I ended up working 9 to 3, 3 days a week in a fast food restaurant. That, however, was only the first red flag, with many others to follow. My first day, I was told to clean the dining area. I was given one cloth and a spray bottle of cleaner. You know how it feels when you're in a torrential downpour with only a newspaper to cover your head? The paper only helps until it gets soggy, and you get wet anyway. Well, that is how I felt after cleaning only a small part of the restaurant with one little cloth. When I asked for another, I was told they were trying to cut costs and I was just to rinse out the cloth. Yikes! People have to eat here. It soon became apparent to me that cleaning was not number one priority, but any area I worked in was washed before I started because I couldn't stand the filth, even though I was told many times, don't worry about it. You need to get your station ready. Holy moly! I had many managers at this place. I would say they were all good people, but they certainly were not all good managers. One guy would ask employees to do things, and if they refused, he did it. Guess how well that worked. Another manager was a good worker on occasion, but chose to tell others to do it and stood by and talked. One manager cursed a lot, and another was afraid to give tasks to the employees, so they did whatever they wanted. And don't get me started on the ones who smoked and were missing in action. The only time anyone seemed to care about doing a good job was when district and regional managers showed up to witness how our restaurant functioned. I am happy to report that they finally sent someone to manage the restaurant who whipped it into shape. So again, who decides that a person is manager material? Do they just pick the person that has been there the longest? Do they choose someone because they are likable? Is the older person picked because they think they are more mature? Or the youngest because they bring energy? I'm not sure I'll ever get answers to my questions. But one thing I am certain of, if owners of businesses do not take an undercover approach and get a better understanding of how things are run at their companies, there will always be issues. And if you are chosen as a supervisor or manager, it is important you know what your boss expects from the business. You should work alongside the other employees to achieve success. As an employee, you also have responsibilities to work hard. My motto for any job I take is work hard and treat it like you own it. So, it begs me to question, if you have gone to the hard work of starting a business, is it not in your best interests to make sure it is a great place to work? Make it your business to discover if your managers and supervisors are competent. Spend some time getting to know your employees and making sure they are happy. Because your company is only one bad manager away from losing credibility. Mach's gut, and see you next time.